This is my Ford Fiesta, affectionately called the Blueberry. I don't even really know how the name Blueberry came about. It's actually my daughter's fault. She named it. My theory is because it's underripe, meaning underpowered, and looks like an underripe blueberry. Oh, that's good. This is a solo experience. I don't need the wildlife joining me. Right, shut that one. This car used to belong to one of my customers. I washed it for her for 3 or 4 years, and every time I went there, I would say, if you ever want to sell this little car, let me know, because it's gorgeous, and it's a manual. And my initial thought, with it being a manual gearbox in this, was that I would teach my kids how to drive. As it happens, my Ford Falcon station wagon that I was using at the time, the gearbox decided to completely pack it in, which I believe is quite common in those Falcon station wagons. And I was in search of a car. I actually started using the Combi for a couple of weeks while I sort of made up my mind and did a little bit of shopping online for what would ultimately become the replacement vehicle for my work and as my tradie toolbox, essentially. So I got a random phone call out of the blue from the lady who owned this, my customer, the one I'd said all those times before, if you ever want to sell, let me know. And she decided that she didn't want this car anymore and I could have it. She'd owned it since brand new. She picked it up from the local Ford dealership in 2006 and it had 65,000 Ks on it when I got it 3 years ago. I swear in the whole time she'd owned it, it had never done more than 3,000 RPM. It had been used to go to the shops, go to church. It was literally the little old lady's car that she'd use just to get to and from. Let's do the Sarah and tuned style. Beans. Woohoo! This thing has no balls at all. That's... I love it. This was the first manual gearbox I had owned for such a long time. Oh yeah, baby! And it's awesome. Oh, there's a bit rough here. Woohoo! And this is what it does. This car puts a smile on my face. There's nothing in it that interferes with you and the road. It's got power steering and that's pretty much it. There's no traction control. There's no assistance of any sort whatsoever. It doesn't even have cruise control, which is a little unfortunate when I have to drive this thing to Perth. But 5-speed manual gearbox on this 1.6 litre little naturally aspirated pocket rocket is awesome fun. Awesome fun. And as much as I had thought that this would ultimately end up being a car that my kids might steal off me, I don't think you're allowed to have it anymore. This is mine. I've fallen in love. Woo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, 6,000 RPM. About 6 months after I bought this car, I found out the lady I bought it from was turning 90 years old. This is the first car I took to a racetrack. probably wouldn't have done it if I hadn't have been talking to a race car driver at the Targa Southwest. I pretty much said that I would love to do some race car driving, or drive on a track, or, you know, just drive quickly around a racetrack. But unfortunately, I only have this, you know, 1.6 litre sluggish little Ford Fiesta. And he said, why not? Why not take that? Take this out on a racetrack. There's a novel idea, right? So I did. I took it to Collie Motorplex for one of their come and try days, and I was hooked from that moment on. I think I've had this thing on track 3 times now. Once with my mate Frank for a come and try day. And that was in the wet too. And given that it's my work car and my daily driver, it's my little 4-wheel toolbox for car detailing, I decided that I had to buy something specifically to take on the racetrack, and hence the Hyundai Excel, and Easy As Motorsports Garage was born. So it all comes from this little nugget right here as to how it all got started. Yeah, I owe this car a lot at the moment. So this car is pretty much my 4-wheel toolbox. It's what my wife and I use as our mobile car detailing rig, and it's got all my gear in the back. When I first picked this up, we'd just literally gotten rid of the Ford Falcon station wagon, which, if you've ever seen the inside of one of those, they're huge, absolutely massive. So I thought that I would need more space, and ended up taking out all the back seats. I thought I needed to buy a bigger car. That's where the Hyundai Terracan comes in, and this was going to be put up for sale. I put all the back seats back in, and then the Hyundai needed to go into the workshop and have some repairs done. I thought that I was going to get rid of this one and move my work gear and everything into the bigger car. I can't do it. I'm too attached. I'm emotionally attached to this car. And I realised how emotionally attached I am to this car when I started detailing it in order to put it up for sale. I spent way too many hours, unnecessarily, detailing this car. I even took all the wheels off and detailed inside the wheel barrels, up inside the wheel arches. I detailed the engine bay, including underneath the airbox cover. I don't think I can sell this car. So what am I going to do with this car? So upgrades wise, what would I do to this? Well, intake and exhaust, most definitely, because it has no guts to it whatsoever. And I think freeing up the breathing of this engine might improve it substantially. Speaking of breathing and improving it substantially, I think one of the other things I'd like to do to this little car is put a turbo in it. Bit much? Probably. Whoop. Oh, it's so easy to drive. It just... Why you would want to have some huge big 4-wheel drive thing, God only knows. This thing is just so easy, so much fun, so frugal. Like, it uses bugger all fuel, which is great considering how expensive petrol is these days. It had the standard little steelies with the plastic wheel trims on it when I picked it up. They had to go. Unfortunately, the colouring, the silver paintwork or plastic dip that they've got all over them was falling to pieces. So the first thing on the list was to pick up some rims. So I jumped on Gumtree and found these 18-inch rims specifically made for this car, and they look absolutely epic. Actually, they probably look a little bit gaudy and obnoxious, but that's the reason I love them. They've got the skinniest little tyres I've ever seen. What else would I do to it? I would probably look at the brakes and putting a bigger brake kit on it, because the brakes in this thing are tiny. They're so small. Maybe a big wing, a new bumper, and a bonnet scoop. Yep, a bonnet scoop. Why not make it more obnoxious, right? And now I'm teaching my daughter how to drive it so that she can learn how to drive a manual. And then one day, if she needs to, she can jump in the Combi and take that for a drive. I'll give you a bit of a story about the Combi another time. Make sure you hit subscribe if you want to find out about the Combi and how that entered our life. I think I'll do a little story on all of my little cars if you like. Oh, here's the bumpy road again. I'll turn around here.